More than anything, I want my students to know that we have a library, that they even exist. Many times my students come into my classes and I ask them, where's the library? And they have no idea where the library is because they're so used to using the internet. So part of my class, one of the purposes I have in my class is to get them into the library, to get them to understand terminology about the library, to understand when I say go to the stacks and find a journal, they understand what that means. When I ask them to use Library of Congress subject guide headings to help them find the right term to search on, that they understand what that means, that they know who the librarians are. I always tell my students the librarians are your friends. They're not going to write that paper for you, but they're going to help you find the right information to get that paper done.
When I was in the academic or the industrial world, I was not given the answer to the problem. I was given the problem, and I had to solve the problem. That is what I want my students to be able to do. Now, how do they solve that problem? They go about finding the information. They go about looking it up in a journal or locating that information and finding out what has been done in the past. First thing, in a problem, you want to know what has been done because I need to go forward with that problem or solve it. And so where do I find the problem? At my information source. What's my information source? The library.
So what I want to do is introduce students to a variety of issues in class that left them with unanswered questions. The goal of research then is to go seek primary sources and secondary scholarship to answer those questions in class. So you come up with a variety of different questions that haven't been answered, and then we move into the library and work with specialist librarians to broaden the students' knowledge.
When I teach my students about developing a research question and eventually getting to a thesis statement, I try to impress upon them the importance of taking time, that it's not an easy or quick process, that there has to be a lot of time and thought put into it. The ideas can develop if they give their subconscious some time to work on it. So we start with just a basic controlling question to get them to think about what they want their research paper to answer overall. That seems to be an easier place to begin, and from there we start to develop a solid thesis statement. But usually they submit a thesis statement to me 2, 3, maybe even 4 times before we really get something that will work for a 10-page paper.
So I'd say if I was formulating a research question, the question would be the very last thing I did. What I do first is work on all of my research. I do all my reading on something that I'm interested in. And then when I was done reading everything, I go, okay, this is what I want to write about. And then I'd go back through all my notes and really focus on that theme.
You guys grow up with the internet, and it's amazing. It is amazing, but I think you forget that there's books in here. I think that that's such a better place to look for, like I said, because it's tangible. I can look, and I can look at those reference lists, and I can look at surrounding books, that's in the same topic. So please come to the library. I know that you think it's more work to actually make a physical trip in the library, open a book, check a book out. I promise you, it's not going to be more work. It's actually going to make your work a lot easier.
When I've used the term online database, students immediately think Google, they think Wikipedia, they think Yahoo, they think search engines. They don't understand that we have a host of databases here in our library that include articles from journals, from other publications, from periodicals that are not just what people post on the internet. So I don't think that they're completely familiar with the idea of an online database until we help them to understand that. Then when they get into researching and using online databases, they start to recognize that there are in fact articles, newspaper articles, journal articles that will help inform their argument. One of the things I love the most that I try to get my students to understand is that they can research at 2 in the morning in their pajamas if they know how to use the online databases that we have available for them, and that it's not strictly internet sources.
quickly. But to be best prepared, they would need to know how to do online research, how to use scholarly encyclopedias, to know the difference between primary and secondary sources, and again, to interrogate their sources for veracity.
When I teach my students about sources, we spend a lot of time on that as well, because I want them to learn that the quality of their paper is dependent upon the quality of their sources. And so we work at deciding what good sources are, and of course that means a trip to the library, several trips to the library.
Today, I start you off working in groups evaluating peer-reviewed journal articles, and you will need to be able to find what the abstract is, what its purpose is. You'll need to find who the authors are. Who do you contact if you need to contact somebody, if you have a question? Who their funding source was and why it's important to know what their funding source was. What materials and methods did they use for that experiment? What was their hypothesis and what were their conclusions? You're going to do that the first day in class, in my class. And so library skills are critically important. And not just when you're in school, but also after you graduate, after you go to graduate school.
This is something that I used to use as a student, and I think it's a secret treasure map that people don't use enough, is the references at the back of an article. So sometimes I think students get so overwhelmed. We didn't do a lot of internet research when I was in school. So now I feel like students are really overwhelmed. They can go to the library, but they feel like they can just Google everything. You're inundated with information. I'm not saying just come to the library because I'm old school and I like libraries. It's because it gives you your little treasure map at the end of the article. Even if you find an online article, there's always a reference, or usually there should be a reference list at the back. Use that. That narrows down your information, because this author that you obviously think is a good author and it's a good article, this is what he or she used in his or her article. And so that just gives you a direction instead of you kind of wandering out in the wilderness of resources. You already have some. I'm not saying you're going to find all of them, but if you could find a couple of them, that would be a lot better than wasting time on Google.
College-level papers require college-level resources, and this is very important because you are at a certain level. Grade school level books are not going to work. Informal things on the internet where you don't know where it's from is not going to work. If you are not sure of a source, if you do not know who's putting out that source, who's putting out that website, I would say don't use it unless you check with your instructor.
So one of the things that I'm really stressing with my students today is anytime they use any type of outside source, whether it be a textbook, whether it be the internet, whether it be anything from Wikipedia to anything from Harvard University, they have to cite the source. And unfortunately, they believe if they're using something word for word, that's the only time they have to cite the source, which is absolutely incorrect. Anytime they use an image, anytime they use a figure, anytime they paraphrase anything from a source, they must cite the source.
Now, one of the biggest questions all my students ask me is, well, if we have to cite a whole bunch and we have to show where all these ideas came from, my paper's going to be full of citations and nothing's going to be my own. Yes, that's correct. In a paper for a philosophy class, I expect very little to come from the student. There's going to be a section where it's your own ideas are formulated, and you've said, all right, after I've thought about this really hard, now I'm going to tell you what I think about it. But that's not going to be a huge part of it. You're freshmen in college. You're just learning how to do this academic experience. You're just learning how to think on your own, and you're just learning how to read these books with a critical eye. I don't expect you to be masters who can put out books on your own yet. What we're trying to learn right now is the very starting point, which is read something, make sense of it, and see if we can put our own little spin on it.
One is on sources itself. So plagiarism, don't do it. It's not worth it. I promise you, it's not worth it. If you plagiarize, and I promise you, we will find it because we hate plagiarism, I will spend weeks looking for it. And when I find it, I'm going to give you a 0. You don't know how detrimental a 0 is in the grade book. It's like a black hole. So even if you did really well on all your other assignments, with that big fat 0 in the grade book, it's sucking down the rest of your grade. If you had just typed up something really crummy, well, at least I could give you, even if you got an F, right? That's 50%, right? 50 points out of 100. At least you have 50 points instead of a big 0. So if you're ever wondering whether to do it, just don't do it.
So when students are coming in and they're working on a research paper, we want students to use professional information in the field that is out there, put out by professionals. And that's important. And these are the sources we find in our library. Instructors work with the librarians in researching and finding books to put on our shelves, books that are recent, books that are up to date, books that are put out by professionals. The trouble with the internet is that sometimes you can encounter materials that are not professional sources, they are not using real data, or they are using data in incorrect ways. So it's very important that you use academic sources, that you use professional sources, and a lot of students try to avoid that because those are harder to read, but that's the point. That's how you're going to learn something.
How do I determine what's a reliable source? How do I determine validity of a source or of the research? Now, some people, some of that higher level determination and statistical analysis would be more appropriate maybe at a bachelor's level, but there is always an entry level of basic discerning of valid, reliable research data. What can I use? We all know Wikipedia is not the source. It is not our preferred source. Can you use Wikipedia like a dictionary? Absolutely. But your responsibility would be to know when do you need to use something more scholarly than Wikipedia. Wikipedia is just that. It's like a dictionary. Therefore, it's not the end-all be-all, and you'll learn a lot about why it's not the end-all be-all and how it can be changed and altered, therefore making it not necessarily the most reliable source. But based on your own knowledge, you could look up something like deep vein thrombosis and say, well, what are they talking about? Get a basic definition, and then from there do an appropriate search on an internet with a reliable engine to be able to determine, am I really obtaining scholarly information, actual research that's been done on a very specific population.
I ask my students to be able to qualify their sources. And what I mean by qualifying sources is that they have to understand that when they have a source, we have to recognize as researchers that this source is in fact credible. So that means they have to understand what are the author's credentials, what gives the author the authority or the right to write about a particular subject. So they come into the library, they use reference material that helps them to find information about who the author is, what the author's educational background is, what their professional background, and it then helps the student to recognize that yes, this fact, in fact, is a credible source and the author is credible, and it will be acceptable to me as their teacher when they write their research paper.
I think the best way to find reliable sources, particularly online, is to make sure you use a library website or an EDU website. But as a historian, I prefer scholarly journals, scholarly edited and produced publications written by experts in the field. I think when in doubt, always check with your professor, work with the librarians, don't use websites like Google and Wikipedia. Even Google Scholar to this point hasn't really been tested by other scholars to see how credible it is. So use traditional forms of research.
I just want them to become curious about everything, and this research project gives them that opportunity if they'll take advantage of it.
What I'm noticing is many of my students that are coming into my classroom, although some of them may be prepared, many of them may be underprepared. Unfortunately, many students that come into my classroom, if they feel that they have to ask questions, unfortunately that means that they're dumb. I also had that feeling back when I was in college, because when I was going through high school, I rarely asked any questions because I was getting A's and B's in class, so therefore I'm pretty smart. I never had to ask any questions, so I'm doing just fine. Well, then I get into college, and then I realize that I wasn't doing very well in my classes, and I just still wasn't asking any questions because only the dumb people ask questions. It was about my junior year when I finally realized, you know what? I need to ask questions. So whether that be at the library, whether that be coming to office hours, and I realized that even asking the simplest question of, for example, is this going to be on the test? Then I know what's going to be on the test. Should I study it or should I not? So I would get clues from my professors. When it came to research, I would go to the librarians and I'd ask them, it may have been the simplest thing of how do I turn the computer on or where do I find a particular book? You have to ask questions.
That some students may feel that libraries are kind of scary. They're usually big, imposing buildings, and if you've never spent much time in a library, it may seem very off-putting to you. But I want you to know that your library at BC is a very friendly place. The librarians do not bite. They live for students to come in and ask them questions. And so don't be afraid to go in and ask for help. Do not be afraid to go up to a research reference librarian and say, I'm having trouble finding something. That's their job, and they love doing their job, and they love to help you.
I think the best way to make knowledge your own and to be excited about it is through research. And in many classes at Bakersfield College and other universities, you will have the freedom to find a project that reflects your interest, your passion, your future. So don't be lazy. Take the initiative to work hard, to push your ideas to the edge, get the sources that you need that are less frequently used to make a creative, original argument. And I want to keep in mind that often students feel like they have to read and memorize everything. I would encourage students to have a position on something. For example, do you believe in affirmative action or not? Do you believe in gay rights or not? And then as you read articles and information about these, fit them into your current position. And hopefully your positions will change and become more nuanced as you read more. But so the advice is, instead of memorizing, understand and relate it to your own stance on issues.